there are plenty of information what you don't know. Where do they live? What are the places in the city which they like to visit during the day? Because what you can see is that they are arriving at 2 p.m. and leaving at 4 p.m. But that's not enough nowadays.
Hello, and welcome back to Corvinus Business Intelligence, the podcast of Corvinus University, based here in beautiful Budapest. My name is Theodore Sebastian Boone, and I am on the faculty of Corvinus University and a host of this podcast. Today, we are truly delighted to have with us a leading expert in a very important and cutting-edge field. Bence Verasztó is a director at KPMG Hungary, specializing on data-driven decision-making. We so much look forward to this discussion, and Bence, thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we really appreciate it, and KPMG Hungary has been such a great supporter of Corvinus University. We have the career fair today, and they have a wonderful team there speaking with many of our students. So it's great to have everybody involved. Let's start with this fundamental question. How would you define data-driven decision-making?
It's a complex question and an interesting one. So basically it means when you try to move from the personal experience and gut feeling made decisions to a more data-driven one based on data analysis and data itself. So it's something which is a cultural change in the organizations, and it's almost a challenging exercise to do.
So are you saying in a way that there's a natural human tendency for people to, they might say they're almost going on instinct and gut and that kind of thing, but rather go on the data?
Definitely. So what we can see nowadays is most of the C-level employees are making decisions based on personal experience and based on their gut feeling. So that means human biases. And what we try to achieve is to make a more transparent, more data-based solution making in the process.
You know, it just occurs to me, as you know, I'm an American, and I know baseball isn't too popular in Hungary, but there's this concept of Moneyball, which you may have heard of, where maybe a few years ago, baseball went from these managers that grew up in baseball and were dealing with their instincts, so who can swing the bat well, to looking hard at the statistics to determine how to assemble a team. Is that a little bit what it's like, what you're suggesting for a management of a company? So let's take something like hiring. How would that work? How would data play a role in hiring?
That's a really great example, and I have seen the film. Is it Brad Pitt starring?
Yeah, Brad Pitt starred.
I have seen that. It was a really great movie.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what you have described. That means data-driven decision-making, and what you are referring to is baseball. But as you already described, it's happening in every organization and every department, and HR can be a great example for that. So when you are looking at new people to be onboarded, there is, of course, the regular interviews, but the HR teams, and especially at KPMG, we are focusing on that, are try to have more focus on the data itself rather than the employee or the candidate.
So in a given situation, whether it's HR hiring or something else, what is the kind of data that you might say should be gathered more, analyzed more in that process?
It's always depending on the use case. So there is no generic rule to identify those kind of data sets, what is needed to be able to make the data-driven decision-making. It's rather use case-based. But what can I say? That was a previous project of mine. When you are focusing on customers, you are focusing on customer satisfaction, personalized marketing. Of course, you have plenty of internal systems. You have a CRM, an ERP, you have a web page, which is, of course, collecting data, but there are several other data sets. We are in a great relationship with one of the telco providers in Hungary, And basically, we use geolocational data as well to do the customer analytics and personalized marketing. So it's always depending on the use case.
All right, so let me play the skeptic at one of your companies, right? One of these, like in the Moneyball movie, the old guys that just want to say, well, he looks like a baseball player, right?
Yep.
So I am, let's say, I deal with customers, customer relations, existing customers, potential new customers. And I say, look, nothing can replace that personal touch. Nothing can replace my paying a personal visit to that company, for us to go out for a drink. And that's really what it's all about. Sure, it's nice to have this other stuff kind of in the background, but at the end of the day, you need that personal contact. How do you reply to that kind of thing?
Maybe I agree, partially. If you are focusing on a B2B use case, but if we are focusing on another type of marketing activity, on B2C, when you are basically responsible for a mall and the strategy and how you can approach customers, how you can bring them in to buy products, to spend time in the mall. There are plenty of information what you don't know. Where do they live? What are the places in the city which they like to visit during the day? Because what you can see is that they are arriving at 2 p.m. and leaving at 4 p.m. But that's not enough nowadays to have that kind of competitive edge.
So how do you go about gathering that additional information?
Many organizations are struggling to collect already available information from the already existing systems. So we are facing with data silos. These systems are not integrated in many cases. So the first thing, the first mission which should be accomplished is to make sure that we are building a strong foundation, strong data foundation from the already available systems. And of course, after that, we can look into the additional data sources.
So you're saying two things. One is the entity may have a whole bunch of data, but it's kind of hodgepodged around. It's not organized, it's not analyzed. But even in that pool of data that they have, it's siloed. So it becomes more difficult to kind of establish the useful connections. Is that it?
Almost. So when I started at KPMG 11 years ago already, it was basically the first mission, what I have seen, that we need to integrate the systems to make sure that we can do the reporting based on that. So there are several ways to do that, and there are several stages to be able to say that you are a data-driven company. But of course, you need to be able to collect the data. You need to be able to analyze it. There is a strong focus on data visualization and, of course, on the insight generation. So there are many steps.
What would be some of the challenges? You have management that wants to do this.
Yes.
They bring you in, of course.
Of course.
What are some of the challenges that might be faced within an organization?
What I can say, based on my personal experience, it starts with the focus. So you need to have that kind of focus strategy that you want to accomplish something with data. And after that, you need to be able to skill up the teams. So there is basically a missing expertise in data engineering and data science fields. You need to be able to coordinate the cultural change within the organization. And of course, after that, you need to start the project with one of the advisors, with KPMG.
Let's talk about the cultural change, because I can imagine that could be very difficult. Human nature being what it is, I go to the same place for my coffee and I order the same coffee and it's good. Why should I try anything new? I do think that's a lot of human nature, maybe even more so in a work setting. So, and particularly if things are kind of going okay, right? Maybe they could go way better, but you're thinking they're going okay. How do you cut through that?
Of course, if you are focusing on reporting teams and on the people working in the teams, they have the spreadsheet, they have the report, what they are using for years already. They trust the data, that's an important point. They trust the data and they have the process in place. What we try to achieve is to have a single source of truth to make sure that what they are using is not recreated in a bit more similar way, but the numbers are always a bit different with another colleague. And that's basically the key decision point to make, that you need to be able to speed up the decision-making process. You need to be able to eliminate the manual work as much as you can. And if more people in your team doing the same data preparation, it's always an issue.
So let's talk about a little bit eliminating the manual work.
Yes.
Right? Because, some people say, well, if I eliminate the manual work, which is part of what I do, this is great, but I may not have a job, right? So how do you deal with that issue?
That's an interesting topic. So what we can see right now, especially in these data fields, is a missing expertise on the market. So what we basically offer to the teams is we try to make sure that they don't have this kind of feeling that we want to eliminate the work, what they are doing. We try to eliminate the manual part to have more time to focus on the advanced analytics part, on the insight generation part.
And how do you go about breaking through the data silos, right? So, the HR department says, why should I share this information with the marketing people? Or whatever the example is. How do you do with that both psychologically and technically, actually, as well?
It always starts with data governance. So you need to make sure that you have the data stewards responsible for the data, for the correctness, accuracy, and stuff like that. And after that, you need to be able to build a reporting database, data warehouse, data lake. We have some fancy names nowadays for data storages, but the main point here, or the main message, you need to be able to make reporting based on the core systems and on top of the core systems.
And so we talked about some of the challenges and solving those challenges. What would you see typically as some of the most significant benefits as somebody not at the beginning of this process, but maybe more in the middle of it, and then going forward after that?
There are a lot of benefits which we can identify. It can be the improved accuracy. It can be the improved speed of decision making. It can be risk mitigation. It can be basically cost effectiveness. If we are thinking about the eliminate of manual work type of statement. So there are a lot of benefits. What is challenging nowadays is to make sure that you have to focus on the long run, because it's not an easy mission to accomplish.
The technologies involved, is there usually in terms of hard assets purchasing, that kind of thing, or is that usually a significant cost or not?
So nowadays it becomes a lot easier, because we have many technology vendors on the market already, but it starts with the strong data foundation. So in case you have the strong data quality, you have the reporting database. On top of that, you can build something with machine learning, with AI. Of course, everyone is talking about AI nowadays, but it's always start with the strong data foundation. But we can say that there are technologies and small enhancement points which are available in a cost-effective way.
How did you get interested and involved in this subject? We definitely like to hear a lot about the background of our guests, not only for our professionals that are already working, but of course for our students as well that are planning out their careers.
So what I can tell you, I studied at Corvinus University.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
It was a pleasure. It was
good to hear.
Applied economics for me.
Fantastic.
And I started at KPMG 11 years ago with the bookkeeping team. So I was responsible for the reporting of the bookkeeping clients, what we have, and basically that what is the basis for me. So dealing with data, collecting data, building dashboards on top of that, to make sure that our clients can have insights and can make data-driven decisions.
And how, in the 11 years, how has your career evolved at KPMG?
So we have founded the team, the data and automation team, together with my colleague. And nowadays, it's a team with 28 professionals, so quite huge. And basically, it was just like everyone's journey. So we have started to work with new technologies, try to work on new services, and right now we are dealing with business intelligence, report development, data warehousing, geolocational data analysis, process mining, so everything which is connected to data.
You're involved in, the team is called KPMG Lighthouse.
Yes.
Is that this team that you're referring to, or is that something else?
So Lighthouse, basically a technology brand within KPMG, and it's a technology hub between the KPMG member firms. So we have that kind of luxury to work together with the colleagues from other countries to make sure that we can exchange experience, exchange credentials, and talk about the newest technologies available on the market.
Yeah, I have to say I like that lighthouse term. Having grown with the U.S.,
great.
you know, the classic lighthouses off the coast of Maine or whatever, they're very charming to visit and see. And in your workspace, the area you focus on, do you coordinate much with the other KPMG offices? How does that work?
So the Hungarian market is not that big, if we are honest. And that's why if we are thinking about the newest technologies and how we can scale up the team and work together with the best possible clients, we always go with other countries in West Europe and do projects together.
It's true Hungary is perhaps not the largest market in the world, but certainly has an amazing history in matters involving technology, going back at least to János von Neumann and his groundbreaking work, or Johnny von Neumann, as he was known in the U.S. When he was at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. Hungary, sometimes I think of Hungary, it's the engine that could, right, in many ways. And how, on a given project within your team, do you break up the work? Is it one person per project, or is it 2 or 3? How do you address that?
Smaller teams.
Yeah.
So we always have senior colleagues responsible for the delivery. And of course, we are working together with many junior colleagues, mostly with graduates from Corvinus University, for example. And that's how we try to scale up the projects.
And we talked about the challenges facing a company moving in the direction which you recommend, understandably. What about your practice? What are the biggest challenges that you face in your practice, in your work?
That's an interesting question.
I try to ask interesting questions.
So for ourselves, and if you are focusing on the team itself, it's always challenging to find new colleagues who are flexible, who wants to learn new technologies. It can happen on a daily basis, because if you are talking about advisory type of work and advisory type of projects, it can happen that on week 1 it's business intelligence, on week 10 it's process mining, but we have a really great team with plenty of great professionals. So,
and if you were talking to a Corvinus student today who was interested in your field, but let's say maybe starting
I do that.
What is some of the advice that you would give someone that's maybe starting their second year? So still has at least 2 more years at Corvinus for the bachelor's, and perhaps more if they do a master's.
So my advice would be, based on my experience and my career, to start an internship and make sure that they can gain as much experience as they can in the early stages, because it can be really beneficial. To start during the university, it's a really great advantage for them, and I definitely recommend, of course, if they have enough time to do that.
Yeah, and they do not neglect their studies. That's important.
Definitely. That's the most important.
That's important as well. Yeah. I may say as a member of the faculties. But that being said, I personally totally agree with you that very often that opportunity to integrate the work experience with the studies is perfect, and you can bring the both back and forth. And sometimes what you're doing in the internship, you can bring to your studies as well. So Definitely. It works well. Do you have a sense of for your field, some of the courses, the types of courses that you think would be on the list of you would highly recommend?
I will be selfish. So I will focus on the data type of new courses what Corvinus has. So I definitely recommend something which is somehow involving technology. So that's nowadays a huge advantage to understand the technological concepts. So it shouldn't be that you are a developer at the university, but you need to make sure that you are hungry and you are flexible enough to learn new technologies.
Well, I'm glad you said that. One of the courses at Corvinus, a course that I actually designed and teach, it's called Business Leadership in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. And I gave it a catchy title, so immediately you got to do that. So the students see the title, and and it worked. I don't know if because of the title or hopefully a little bit beyond that, but it's been oversubscribed, going very well. Thank you. As a lawyer in my other non-academic world, I focus in this class on substantially the legal and ethical parts of AI, but also getting into these issues of digital transformation as well, which everybody is facing. And I'm sure you're familiar with the EU AI Act that is now coming into force, and the issues involving there, including most recently in prohibited AI, not being able to use emotion reading AI in workplaces and schools. So very, very fascinating, very, very fascinating issues. On a personal level, kind of outside of the classroom, what are some of your strongest memories of your days at Corvinus? Your good memories. You don't have to tell about the exam stress and that kind of thing.
The friendships. So I have 5 or 6 friends since the uni, and they are really great friends of mine. So basically, that's the biggest advantage what the uni life gave me.
That's really great to hear. On your day-to-day practice and your work, is there anything else at this point that we haven't had an opportunity to cover, or at least in detail, that you would want to be sure to mention, want to be sure that our listeners and viewers would take away from, or if you simply want to summarize the 2 or 3 key bullet points that you would like somebody to take away from this discussion?
Maybe just 2 sentences. So I definitely recommend to do an internship at a multinational company, and I definitely recommend to focus on some kind of technology involved type of jobs. So maybe these are the 2 key points for me to share.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, we have a tradition with this podcast where we try to get a little bit behind the professional and find out about the personality, the character of the person. These questions are based on a Marcel Proust. I studied French in high school, but I'm not sure about the pronunciation.
It was great.
Sort of quick questions designed with quick answers to find out a little bit more about you. So if you're ready, we're gonna zip through those. So here we go. With the first question, which living person do you most admire?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Honestly, I'm a Messi fan. I have to admit. In fact, in my class, I take a vote.
Don't do this.
Okay, all right. We could do a whole other podcast on that. So, what is the trait you most deplore in others?
Lack of empathy.
Mm-hmm. What is the quality you most like in a person?
Being humble.
Mm-hmm. Which words or phrases do you most overuse? Data. But that's understandable.
Yes.
Which talent that you do not have would you most like to have?
Patience.
Okay. 6. For me, I have to say it would be singing. You don't want to hear me sing. 6. What is your greatest extravagance?
I'm a boring guy, but tattoos.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Being more patient.
Be more patient. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
My daughter.
What, not who, is the greatest love of your life?
Football.
If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what would it be?
A lion?
A lion. Lion King. What is your most treasured possession?
It's a lucky charm from my daughter.
I can understand that. What is your most marked characteristic?
Energetic?
What do you most value in your friends?
They love me for who I am.
Who are your favorite writers?
It will be cheesy, but J.K. Rowling.
Who is your hero of fiction?
Batman?
I thought you might say Harry Potter. Which historical figure do you most identify with?
Marcus Aurelius?
Who are your heroes in real life?
My parents.
What is your greatest regret?
Not being a professional football player.
If you were to live somewhere else than where you currently live, although I personally cannot imagine why anybody would not want to live in Budapest, but I'll stick with the question. If you were to live somewhere else than where you currently live, where would you most like to live?
I like Spain.
Not Portugal because of the whole Ronaldo thing?
It's Spain for me.
Barcelona?
For me.
Okay.
Spain for me.
All right. We're in Spain.
In Barcelona.
Yeah, okay. I cannot argue with that. What is your motto?
Passo corto, vita larga. It's a Spanish motto. Short steps, long vision.
It's more than a club, the Barca motto.
Never.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Live for the day.
Yeah, I understand. Yep, I get it. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think it's always very helpful to get to know the person, not only professionally and their work, and as a former Corvinus student, but to dig even deeper. So thank you for that so much. And Bence Verasztó of KPMG, director at KPMG Hungary, we so much appreciate your coming in today to speak with us. It was very, very interesting and enjoyable. I wish you a great rest of the day today. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.